Lake Atitlan has been described by many as the most beautiful lake in the world. And as soon as you visit, you're going to see why. Not only is the lake itself a magical place, but the surroundings with the volcanoes on the horizon and a series of different towns and communities, each with their own culture and history and story. It's a special place. And today I'm going to be sharing everything I know about Lake Atitlan. I got my notebook, took a bunch of notes for this one. Very professional YouTubing skills. Anyway, let's get right to it. Now first, a bit of context. I've actually visited the lake twice. The first time was on this group trip I was taking called Fearless Journeys. So there was a group of us and I was just following the flow of activities. We did a lot, we saw a lot. The second time, I went there on my own just to slow down and just to sort of have a digital detox. Like I left the camera and laptop and everything behind, and I just went there just to experience the beautiful nature of Lake Atitlan. So I'm going to talk a bit about both ways. The sort of things you can do if you're on a strict itinerary and you want to see a lot quickly. And I'm going to talk a bit more about the natural side of the lake. The first thing you should know is a town called Panajachel. Both times I visited, I went through Panajachel. It's the town which geographically is closest to places like Antigua, which is the natural route that people take to get to Lake Atitlan. But Panajachel is a hub. And so of all the communities around the lake, Pana, as people call it for short, is definitely one you should know about. Now the first time I visited, we went straight from Panajachel to this place called Hotel Atitlan, which is this beautiful, expansive hotel with a hot tub and a pool and a great restaurant. And I mean, like, look at this place. It was pretty incredible. You do have some very sort of luxury if you're looking for that sort of experience. But my second time, I actually stayed at a very affordable place in the town of San Marcos, another community on the lake. And so the second thing you should know is that there's a huge range of accommodations for anyone's budget. And the third thing you should know is there are tons of towns too. I mean, I've mentioned two so far. I mentioned San Marcos, where I stayed on my second trip. And I mentioned Panajachel, which is the entry point. But what you should really know is there's over a dozen communities around the lake. Some of them are more popular with tourists, some of them are less popular, but they're all accessible by boat. Which brings me to point number 4. I highly recommend you to take at least one good boat ride across the lake. You know, there are ways to just take a shuttle or just drive directly to these communities, but to be honest, the countryside of Guatemala is beautiful, but the highways are not in great condition. There's a lot of bumps, there's a lot of holes, the traffic can be pretty crazy and you're constantly going back and forth on these crazy turns. So it's hard to enjoy the drive, but when you're on the boat and you're on the lake, one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had in Guatemala is just being on that lake. You can pay more money and rent a boat. Like let's say you're in Panajachel and you want to get directly to a place like San Juan. You can find a driver or rent a boat for the day and get directly there. Or you can just take the public boats. And the public boats leave every 30 minutes or maybe even every 15 minutes. You just show up at the docks and there's going to be like Guatemalan people yelling out names of towns. And so wherever you're trying to get to, you can just like hop in a boat. It won't be as direct because they're going to stop at all the little communities. But it's going to be a fun experience. You also get to save some cash. I mean, I think it was 20 quetzales, maybe 25. It's very affordable. But where should you want to go? What towns should you actually want to visit? So I'm going to name drop a few of the places that I've either been to or I've heard good things about. The first one that we went to on that group trip I was in is a place called San Juan. And San Juan is famous for, well, first of all, it's a beautiful town. I never thought I would see beautiful artwork like that with a face mask. Truly a sign of the time we are living in. But as I understand it, they didn't get a lot of tourism until the popularization of this place where it's actually a women-owned indigenous clothing co-op. Okay, that's a mouthful. Let's break it down. So it's a group of indigenous Guatemalan women who are working together to sell the textiles and the beautiful clothing that you see all across Guatemala. And you can go there, you can learn a bit about how it's made, You can get a demonstration. You can get someone in your group to embarrass themselves by actually trying to do it themselves, which we did.
How do you get it to go down?
It doesn't go down. After getting the thread, you roll it down.
Ah, okay.
No, actually, Trevor did a pretty good job. He didn't embarrass himself, but it definitely shows you how experienced these women are with their years and years, well, actually generations and generations, I should say, of experience. But yeah, if you're trying to engage with the Mayan communities, the indigenous past of Guatemala, this is a cool way to do it.
All natural. Just incredible.
Now, another town I heard good things about was San Pedro. I never made it to San Pedro, but what I hear is San Pedro is the party spot. So if you're looking for nightlife, if you're looking for that side of Guatemala, I heard that San Pedro is a very popular place. And then there's San Marcos, which is the town that I referenced earlier. That's where I went on my second visit, where I was being zen and I was just chilling out. San Marcos is more known for spirituality and yoga. I mean, San Marcos is the kind of place where people are literally walking down the main street barefoot. You can't throw a rock without like hitting a yoga studio or something like that. If you are vegan or vegetarian, I've never seen so many options as I did in San Marcos. I mean, like you'll know, like based on what I just said, you'll know if this spot is right for you or not. But for me, for someone who just wants to slow down and experience the nature, it was great. I mean, it was one of my favorite travel experiences, was just hanging out in San Marcos. And speaking of chilling out and connecting to nature, let's say you don't actually want to be in the towns. Let's say you want to get to the nature. Well, there's some good options around the lake too. So right near Pana, there's a place, it's a nature reserve. I think it's just called, let me check good old Google Maps. Yeah, it's Reserva Natural Atitlan. When I was on the group trip, we actually went there and we did some zip lining, which...
There's Dan. There's Dan.
Okay, like I'd ziplined when I was younger and I kind of thought, ziplining, like it'll be whatever, like it's just ziplining. But actually the zip lines here are huge.
Danny boy! Woo! There is the new travel.
Some of them are like hundreds of meters and you have this beautiful view of the lake. So it's actually like a bit more intense than you might expect it to be. Now over at San Marcos, there was another nature reserve. I believe it's called Cerro Zancudil. Yeah, it's another place. I think you pay like 20 quetzales to get in, and then you have this beautiful stretch of beach. So you could literally go there and just treat it like a day at the beach. You could do some little hiking. It's not as big as the other one I mentioned, but there's some hiking you could do in that area. Oh, and there's also a cliff jumping spot. A few people in our group went cliff jumping. Yeah! I use the excuse of, oh yeah, I'm the camera guy. I'll just watch. I'll film you, which was secretly my way of not wanting to do the cliff jump myself. But yeah, it was a pretty intense jump, and you know, it's a beautiful setting to do it if you're into that kind of stuff. So those are a few of the common spots you'll hear mentioned around Lake Atitlan. But the next thing to know is that if you check the map and you look around and you're seeing these other towns I haven't mentioned, they're all visitable, whether by a boat or just by a little bus ride from Panajachel or whatever. Like you can visit any of these places. And some of them are living very traditional lifestyles. I mean, frankly, even in San Marcos, there is the tourist crowd and there's the yoga and there's the spiritual stuff going on. But there's also the Mayan communities who are just living traditional lives as they have been for generation and generation and generation. The last thing I want you to remember is just to come with respect for this beautiful lake and these communities that you're visiting. I think sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes tourists can be just concerned about their own vacation and not really thinking about the impact that they're leaving behind. A useful way to think about it is when you visit a community, are you giving something back to that community or are you just taking? Because if you are just seeing a spot as a chance to party and just take some photos and you don't need to talk to any local Guatemalans or whatever because you're just like, you're having your fun time and you're just leaving trash at the beach or whatever, like you might just be taking. You might just be taking from that beautiful spot. But if you come with respect in your heart and you make an active effort to to acknowledge and understand the community that you're visiting, and to spread good vibes, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it. Like, you know, just to understand that this is a beautiful lake that we're visiting. I think we can continue to enjoy it for a long, long time. There's more I could say. There's definitely more I could say. You're going to learn more about Lake Atitlan if you visit it for yourself. That lake has a magic to it, and I hope you get a chance to experience it as well. Let me just check my notes. Did I get everything? I think so. I'll see you next time. Peace.